So I hope everybody's doing great, and I know how wonderful everyone thinks the Gradebook and Ultra is, so we're going to talk about that today. No, seriously, there's a lot of questions, a lot of concerns, because the Gradebook is obviously a very important part of your courses. So, yeah. So, what we're going to talk about today, though, is a little bit more advanced than just going over the, going back over the basics of the Gradebook and things like that. We are going to go a little deeper and talk about two specific features. I am not sure why it will not share my application. So I will share my entire screen, but I don't know. Is that causing an issue with a sort of forever grid? I'm not able to.
I'm still seeing your lovely face.
Wonderful. Well, that's exciting.
Yep.
So what I'm going to do is turn my video off, so that way maybe this will work better. I apologize. So, all right. So what we're going to talk about today, like I said, was offering extra credit in the Ultra Gradebook and dropping the lowest grade. And this is one of the resources that the online learning department has put together for faculty, and it is just a lot of different types of support and resources, and some of those are what we refer to as cool faculty development. So we've got things like cool news here on SharePoint site. We also have learning more about familiarizing faculty with how to teach online and best practices and things. We have micro courses and cool by design, cool challenges and things like that. Just little things that can help further your development as you're working on your online courses. Well, we're going to go and take a look at one of the micro courses today. And as I said, it's a little bit of an intermediate skill. And I've got, it is offering extra credit and dropping the lowest grade. Has this changed with, okay, good, it's changed my tabs, excellent. So this is a really nice step-by-step way to learn this process. I'm not going to go through each and every step here. We're going to skip directly to the focused topics, but I did want to walk you through this course because I think it's really a great resource for you, especially if you're not able to do these things right now as you're watching this. You can always reference the recording, but you have access to this whenever it's convenient for you. So this course covers adding an extra credit graded item, adding an extra credit category, including an extra credit category in the final grade, and then how to drop the lowest grade in a grade category. So we're going to skip right here to adding an extra credit graded item. So as you go through here, it sort of explains reasons why you would want to have an extra credit assignment added to the course. And there's a few different ways that you can offer that to students. Because this is a very specialized course to really key in on those topics, if you're not familiar with how to create an assignment, the resource for that from Blackboard has been added here rather than going through the steps of creating the assignment. But you'll also notice that there's screenshots in here. But what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go through adding an assignment just to bring you into the process from there. So if I scoot over to a course and to create an assignment, whether it's in a module or outside of a module, more than likely you'll want to create it in a module. So you would expand a module, and then you would click the little, hover over the lines in between each item, you'll get the purple plus, and you're going to go to create. Then you're going to, of the choices that come up on this menu, you're going to go to assignment. And you're going to fill out all of the information, the extended information for the assignment. We're going to name this Ultra Week or Extra Credit. Credit Ultra Week. And hit return. That's one thing I always forget to do is hit return, and then it always stays by the default. To get the full parameters of the settings and the options that I can have for an assignment, I'm going to hit the settings gear, and as it says in our course, we are going to go over to the grading area where it talks about how many points you're going to offer. So you're going to choose points, and then you're going to make your point 0. And whatever other options you want regarding due date, number of submissions, things like that, that's all up to you. You can personalize all of those other options. The main thing is to make sure that you are you need to grade using points, and the maximum points needs to be 0. When you do that and you hit save, it shows us here that when we assign the maximum point value to 0 points, students are penalized if they decide not to complete the extra credit assignment. And then for students who do complete the assignment, they'll receive the additional points. So as complicated as it may seem to be initially, it's just that simple. It's really just a matter of making sure that you grade using points, and that the maximum points you offer for that assignment is 0. And if you were to decide to go through the course, there's a PDF walkthrough of how to create extra credit for the assignment for one graded assignment. So yes, did you have a question? Or you just let me know if there's any questions.
Yes.
Stacy?
Yes, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I can, if you give me just a second, I can reference, if Lorraine is on the call, she may know when, she may be able to recall when she created this course, but I don't know so much that it's new. It may be newer, but I don't know if it's like brand new. She created it last fall. So, last summer. Thank you, Lisa. So there you go. So I guess it's been at least since the fall. So is there a way to make an assignment that syncs in from a Pearson as an extra credit in Blackboard? Because all the publisher content approaches the integration with the Gradebook differently, they may have different parameters, they may have different integration coding. I would check with your publisher rep and see if they can provide more specific information, because I would hate to give you wrong information or mislead you in any way. So yes, it is exciting that this is an option for everybody, because I know that this is a pretty common question I've gotten. So the next part of the course takes you through how to add an extra credit category. And Lorraine points out that you might find that students will want to take advantage of getting multiple opportunities for extra credit, which, if as part of your course design you feel that that's a good incentive and it also helps reinforce the learning and aligns with the course well, then this is how you would want to go about doing that. So there's several default grade categories in Blackboard Ultra. So when you create a graded item as an assignment, it's automatically associated with a category. There is, as you saw in the menu options, and I'm going to scoot back over here real quick. I'm going to close out our working assignment, and when I click this create, just like all of these categories, this is what we're referring to. A test, an assignment, a discussion, a journal, those little icons are somewhat relevant. Well, they're relevant in how the gradebook compartmentalizes your items, all of the items, so that way it coordinates with, you know, getting a total weighted total. So for instance, if there's a lot of instructors that will 50% of a student's grade may be on tests, and 25% might be assignments, and 10% might be discussions. So these are some basic categories that that Ultra has put into place to help integrate some consistency and in ways help organize items in your gradebook. And so when you hit assignment, as we did earlier, and I click my little gear down, this right here, just like when we pull down to say what type of grade method we're going to use, you're also going to have options here in the grade category. And as I mentioned, you know, you've got tests where you've got the icon. There's an exam. If that was maybe a higher stakes test, you have homework, presentations, quizzes. What's nice about these other little categories is that it, you know, the icon of trying to say, like, the icons can be very useful for students as they're kind of glancing at a glance. They can take a look in the module and say, well, there's 3 documents that I'll need to read and go through and find a link and do resources, and I've got an assignment and I have a quiz and things like that. So those little icons are really nice because they align well with these default categories. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about categories. So if we go back over to our other course, it says here to create an extra credit category, you're going to go to the gradebook and you click the icon setting. So I'm going to close out of here. Just wanted to show you where that category was. And I'm going to go up here to the gradebook. And then I am going to pull that little gear down up here. And then I am going to, under Setup Overall Grade, I'm going to go to Grade Categories, and I can add a new category here. And we'll name this Extra Credit. I'm going to hit Return, which, you know, as a graphic designer, it makes me a little sad that there's not a way to personalize that extra credit icon, but, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. And so then you're going to assign that graded item to the extra credit category, and then remember each time you created a graded item in your course, it's automatically associated with that appropriate category. But keep in mind that for some items, you'll have the option to change a grade category. So the item is associated with a custom gradebook category, such as that as extra credit. This is what you want to do. You want to go back. So we've got the category within the gradebook. So that way it becomes a new selection in that drop-down menu as we create assignments. So I'm going to close that. And I'm going to go back to the course. Nope, wrong course. That's not going to work. Ultra. Where am I at? Here we go. Sandbox course. Sorry about that. So I'm going to go back to my assignment and scroll down to make an assignment. And this time, when I click the little gear, I'm going to have my option for extra credit is going to be what I choose, which once again, I want to change maximum points. I need to double check and make sure that's correct. Yes, I was going to say, yes. And so make sure that you, just like you did with the single item, make sure that you apply that to each individual assignment as well that are going to be grouped in that category. So then you're going to go ahead and hit save. And now, when you go back to your Gradebook, click this assignment off, and I'm going to go back to my Gradebook. And when you set up, you can set up your overall grade, and I'm just doing this to show how and where the categories are. And as you see, it's sort of right now it's giving a percentage value for each item individually because I have selected the overall grade being calculated by Gradebook item weights. So it says, well, this is how many items you have in the Gradebook, so each one of them have to be worth this, so that way it equals 100%. But as you see, the other option is to use grade category weights. So in that case, you see here's our extra credit, and you can, and so that's where our extra credit is, and then you can it doesn't cover this in the course, so I just want to double check with Lorraine. Does this need to be set to 0 here, this overall grade percentage, Lorraine? Well, she'll get back with us as soon as she can. In either case, that's where your category is going to come in handy. And so just like we have, we've got 5 quiz items, and I have 6 journal items and 18 assignments. So that's how that goes. So yes, Lorraine said you would want to, logic told me that I'd want to set this to 0, which means I'd have to add, I don't know, 88. It's been a long morning. 88, what is that, 12? Yep. No. Oh, 89. Is that 11? 21? 99 and 12. There. Math is really not my strong suit. Oh my gosh. In either case, but then it wouldn't include any of the points. I'm sorry if I don't understand, but it doesn't make sense. Well, because when you go into the actual grades and you add those points, they're looked at as additional points, and adding the 0 or making the adjustment to the percentage and point value has to do with almost making having it be a requirement. And so any percent that comes up from points that are added to that come up as extra points. Is that an accurate way to, does that help explain it at all? Okay. Let me see, Stacy. Is it possible to have an assignment that was originally put in the homework category changed to the extra credit in the gradebook? I believe you can change. I think that just comes from editing. Let me find my window. I'm in the wrong window here. I'm so sorry. I think that can be simply done by changing the settings on that individual item. So for instance, I'm just going to say a bit brief. So for instance, we'll demonstrate that quickly. Oh, that was the, so let's say you'd said an assignment or a textbook reading here I've got. So I'm going to go back to, Rose, it's my daughter. Where am I at here? I'm going to go back to gradable items. And what was I trying to do here? I'm losing my mind. All right, so this was just say homework. And oh, I apologize. I forgot we have to exit out. And this was one of the things that was discussed this morning. So here's my new assignment, or actually, let's just go to one that I've already got in the course. And maybe if I can find it. Here we go. Let's go, well, I'll just use the discussion just for the sake of changing the cat. I don't think it's going to work because discussion's a discussion. I really need to find an assignment, which I'm struggling to. Great question. Here's a quiz. Oh gosh, I bet you that's not going to work either. I know I have a homework one in here, but let's just create one. Once you added it, all you need to do, I'm more than certain, is just change the category. You can go back into this editing area and go to your assignment, and if you have it assigned as whatever, you can change that category at this level. That's what you'd want to do. So, and you'd want to, once again, double check that you have 0 points here, and you can change it from, okay, let's say I have it as an assignment and I hit save and then it's done. It's in the assignment category. Well, now I'm going to go and where did I do? I want to edit you, so I'm going to click on that little fella and I'm going to get to my year. And I have this in as extra credit. I know this is reversed from what you would ask for, and now I can make it an exam and then you can save it. So to answer your question on how you would go about doing that is if you had an assignment that was originally put in the homework category, that's how you would change it to, you would just go back into that level of the assignment and change it there. This means you don't need to actually make the extra credit gradebook item. Well, if you want it to be, if you want it, like I said, the point value, I think, is the main takeaway. And to help organize and keep your assessments and your all of your items in your gradebook for those that are used to or prefer to use the categories, that's a way to just extend on that organization. Stacy said, I don't believe that making an extra credit category would work. If it counts for 0 towards the overall weighted grade, it wouldn't count. It seems to make more sense to make it assignment, test, discussion, journal that counts for 0. Then it will be the extra points in there. Now, I can just, I have approached extra credit similar to you're saying. So if there was a value of 100 or 50 points, there's been times where I've had students turn in work that I thought was, they had put above and beyond effort. And so therefore I've added extra points there. So Stephanie, so, you could go that route, but this is just a way if you were to, that worked really well for me because there were individuals that I had given extra points to and I didn't necessarily offer it as an overall, okay, this is extra credit. But taking, using the strategy of creating a extra credit category and or making it 0 points alleviates the perception from students that they're required to do it. And then it takes it away from the total requirement for what they would need to do. It doesn't, it helps in that regard. Okay. What would happen if you just make, I'm sorry, these keep skipping up some. What would happen if you just make it out of 0 points and leave it as an assignment? That's an extra credit assignment, right? Correct. Yes, you could just keep it as an assignment and at 0 points. Yes, like I said, the added benefit or the thought process of explaining why you would want to utilize a category is there's you know, because of how Ultra has established and set the gradebook up, there's many instructors that have become very familiar and maybe even accustomed to using those categories. So we wanted to make sure that that part was explained as well. So if categories are something that you use as a way of calculating your total grade, that's how you would approach adding an extra credit category. So it can be as specific as possible for you on that end. Stacy said, that's what I think. Stephanie had asked, can you assign points if the max is 0? And Valerie said, yes, I have. She said, I have an assignment like that where I gave 2 to 0. And Lorraine said, some people like to use categories to lump all the extra credit into one category. That's where that comes in. Okay, so there we go. If you set, whoop, sorry, got a bad step there. If you set a category to be worth 0, does it count in their grade? I use straight points, so I use a total column and set that for 100%. So if I want their 0 out of 2, 2 out of 0 to count in their grade, I have to have it in that total column that is in the 100%, correct? Let me see. So if I want their 2 out of 0 to count in their grade, I have to have it in that total column that is 100%. Correct. I think Sherry jumped in and said, yes, if you include it in the total computation. And April asked earlier, if you're using a publisher for all assignments and have extra credit set up there, then I think the best way to show the overall grade is how you showed using categories. I see. Okay. And also April added, also someone yesterday showed me how to grade a calculation where I included all assignments and then divided by 1,000 where the total possible with extra credit. There you go. So that's another way to think of it. So for instance, my senior English class, I got 102% because of extra credit. So my total grade was just more than that, more than 100%. So thank you all very much for contributing to helping answer those questions and giving some insight on all that. Is there overall grade a running total? I imagine it is. I have, when you utilize it by, when you do the points, yes, I was going to say, usually when you assign points and I have gone through my categories and sort of assigned my own percentages to the category to what I felt was more or most higher stakes to lower stakes sort of thing. So I sort of base my percentages on that kind of a scale. All right, so
we're at 1 minute left. If you have any closing remarks.
We are? Really? I thought this went to 120.
Oh, it goes to 120? Oh, I thought it.
It's been a long week.
I'm so sorry. Yes, to 220. You keep talking, girl. I'm so sorry.
Oh, yes. Well, no, it's okay. I know that, and I apologize for those that may have been confused. I'm trying to read the comments and just make sure that I'm not overlooking any questions. I know that the gradebook, has just got a lot of intricacies to it. So I wanted to make sure that everything that, all the activity that's going on in the chat is sort of just, looked at a little bit closer in case anybody had some specific advice or, like I said, sharing your approaches has been really great and really helpful. So I appreciate that. And I welcome all the questions. like I said, I just wanted to kind of explain why I have been so detailed in going through the chat activity. So that's where we left off, was going over how to add a category. And she's got a little indicator here that says you can also create a grade column in the gradebook and assign it to the extra credit category. If you don't know how to create a grade column, see Blackboard's help on creating a manual graded column, which if I pop out that, it's going to give me this reference, which shows how to do that. And it's a step-by-step here that involves going to the gradebook. Let's see, manually add a gradebook. So you can add grade items that don't require submissions, and they're called manual grades, manually created items, or offline items. So I know that there's a few things in Cool Academy that are offline items, and so if we, and it's indicated in the assignment portal, but it can also be approached this way. So they don't appear, manually added items don't appear in the course content page. They do appear on students' global and course grade pages, so that's something good to know. And you're not able to add any files, rubrics, goals, or groups to manually added items. So if you want to add these options to assessments without submissions, they direct you to how to learn how to do that. So you add a new item in the course gradebook by going to the list and student or student grid view. There's one thing that I wanted to just kind of touch on really quick. One of the things I have noticed in learning what I can about the gradebook and trying to help as we, make sure everybody converts over to Ultra as easily as possible, is that there's some things that are dependent on being in one view or another. And it's not until you sort of get into the gradebook and start to really familiarize yourself with, for instance, you have to be in this view to be able to access an assignment this way, or like I said, I can't think of anything specifically offhand, but as I have done a handful of these similar to kinds of walkthroughs on the gradebook, I just noticed that one of the first things I would need to explain was you need to be in this view to do this, or okay, first you're going to go to that view. So if you're having trouble trying to do something or trying to accomplish something in the view, the current view, try switching to the grid view, as that might offer you options, or you can stumble upon, a way to put what you wanted to, or edit what you wanted to in the gradebook. Are there any questions?
Says you can only see if a student has submitted something late if you're in that overall grid view. That's one thing that she's found.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am. So yeah, there's, like I said, there's just these little, tiny kind of quirks that come up, and it's not that it's broken, but it's just however the integrations between everything work, for whatever reason, that particular view is, yes, that's going to give you whether or not somebody submitted something late. Yes, excellent. So when we go back, pop over here in your course gradebook, you can add a new item in the gradable items in either the list or student grid views. So it walks you through, and it says to select the plus sign, you're going to see the add item. So just like we do that's one thing that's really great about Ultra, is the navigation isn't just streamlined for students. There's a very practical, logical, repeated process for how things are done in each area of Ultra for instructors as well. So just like you would at any other content item in the content page, you look for those little spaces, those little areas in between graded items, and then you're going to hit the plus add item. And then it's going to, well, let's see, it says you've got a limit on, you'll have to add a title and decide what date needs to be assigned to that item. And then you can make the item visible or not visible to students. Same kind of details that you would with any other assignment. And I suppose in this case, if you wanted to just add one manual thing to the gradebook and not necessarily have it be a course content assignment, then you could take this approach, and if you choose those points, you would want to make those 0 in the case of it being extra credit, if that makes sense. And then you would just go ahead and save, and that new item would be, you assign a category if you want to use those when you create the calculations, and then it will add that gradebook item. It also shows a little bit about what the students will see. So if you make a manually added item visible to students, they see the item on their global and course grades pages with or without a grade. A reminder that manually added items don't appear on the course content page. So that would be the difference. If you were to add a manual item to the gradebook or an additional column, then that's not going to appear on the course page. So it just depends on how you want that fully presented to the student. If it makes more sense, or for whatever strategy you have for creating that item, if the advantages of it being in the course content or not being in the course content, it would be up to you, or what aligns best with your course. And then another example of that would be if you collect submissions offline, and let me see, the last thing, like I said, it also gives other examples as to what the students are going to see. So that's really helpful there. So she has included that reference for you in this micro course, and then she's got downloadable PDF for you to follow step by step. And then we're going to include an extra credit category in the final grade, which might be some of the things that we touched on earlier. If you wanted to give extra credit activities into a grade category, great, nice job. So we'll make sure that the extra grade category is included in the student's final grade, which is, I think, what you were touching on earlier, Stacy. So in doing so, if you're not, well, it says she gives a little recap on how to include extra credit category in the student's final grade, just to keep in mind, like I said, which is kind of where your concern was coming in, whether or not the weighted final grade is going to, if it's going to be included or not included. So if you are not weighing the final grade, the gradebook will be configured using a total column for the final grade, and then you'll need to create that column. It goes on to explain, if you are weighing the final grade, you will just use the overall grade column, and then you'll need to set that up in the column. So to just make sure that the percentage of the extra credit category has been in the overall grade calculation. And she gives you instructions on little walkthroughs on how to do each one of those. So like I said, a lot of these things come into play as to how you want to approach it. And like I said, it's just another example of how intricate the gradebook is, and how each of these steps and each of these items connect to other areas. So, it could also come down to trial and error on what's going to work best. You might use one approach for one course and another approach for another, just depending on what is, what the main objectives are and things like that, and the best strategy to use for that particular course. So, let's see. Let's see. So where it says grade now, I think that's because the grid view shows a list of students, and the list view just shows the items. Okay. And then how do you have to click the 3 dots? Oh,
We just have some discussion going on about seeing.
I'm sorry. I just want to double check. I'm not overlooking a question. Okay, so Lorraine has wonderfully mapped out each option for you, so you can look through those and explore. And like I said, a lot of it has to do with, what's going to work best for you in the course. And once again, closes that out with a handy dandy include an extra credit grade category in the final grade PDF as a takeaway for you. So now we're going to move up to the next topic, which will, I think, round out everything well for how much time we've got left, which is how to drop the lowest grade in a grade category. This is how, this is actually fairly simple, and it's a fairly new addition to Ultra. I mean, in the last 6 months or so. So this may be really beneficial for students if, there's so much going on for them. And so if you can offer any sort of relief and, give them sort of a cushion to know that what, if they happen to struggle on one particular assignment, that it's not going to bring their whole entire grade down. So this is a great way to approach that. And Blackboard, the overall grade column can be calculated using weighted grade categories, and the instructors can add a grade category calculation rule, such as dropping the lowest score, dropping the highest score, using only the lowest score, or using only the highest score. So when these rules are in place, students can gain access to their overall grade calculation details and see if some additional rules have been set, and that gives them some clarity on how their grades are going to be calculated. So she goes through and gives an example of how that's going to work. You open the gradebook, you're going to click on the 3 dots to the right of the overall grade and select edit. So once you go to gradebook here, then you're going to go to the pretty common ellipse for more menu options. You're going to find the final grade category that you want to drop the lowest grade in, which is a test in our case. So you're going to hit this little hit where the blue arrow is pointing to. There's the add rule option. So in the category calculation rule setting, click enable. So I'm going to hop over to our little sample here. I'm going to go to gradebook. And let me double check. Overall grade. Which is right here. Ooh, okay. So I go to overall grade. Nope. I go to overall grade ellipse, and I go to edit. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I wasn't sharing my tab as I needed to. And then it's going to bring up all of your categories, if I have it set to categories, which I do now. And then that's where you're going to see this calculation rule. So if you hit add rule and you enable that, enabling a rule allows you to set conditions for all elements within the category to calculate the category's total score. You need to have more than one non-exempt item within the category to set a rule correctly. It says to bear in mind that enabling rules can affect a student's final grade for that category. So you can choose specific scores in the total calculation, which you get other options of highest, lowest, and highest, or you can choose to drop scores from the total calculation. So you can drop X number of lowest scores, X number of highest scores. And then those are your options there. And that's how you would do that for each. That's how you would go about dropping the lowest score or the lowest grade within categories. So we've walked through that, and like I said, this is just a really great reference for you to go back through, and when you're in your course, you can actually, go step by step and see how to do that. So that is that is how you add extra credit. There's a few different ways to do that. And like I said, depending on your overall grading approach and how you are most comfortable or what's best suited for the course, how you integrate how you end up integrating the gradebook. You've got some options there. And then that's how you would add a drop a selection of different scores, whether it's the highest score, lowest score, and then you can go by category or individual. So you've got some other options there. Let me see. Stacy. In the list view, is late submission in red only if you have an assigned auto 0? I never saw those, so I added the auto 0, which worked to show for a while, but it doesn't show now. I have to look into that a little bit more. She says she loves Ultra, but hates the gradebook. She's just saying. April asked, can you only drop a low score if you created your own exams? In other words, not creating publisher content. Once again, I am hesitant to give definitive advice or information on how publisher content integrates, because I've noticed throughout this week, but also there's some instructors that will have all of their grades excuse me, in one category or sort of as one, and then they're from publisher content because they also have other things that they've integrated in to their course manually through just the options in Blackboard. And then I've also seen instructors have used the graded weight items. So my best advice is to double check and see if there's any specifics on how the publisher content or any suggestions or what the process would be, because I think a lot of that has to do with maybe settings that you choose from the publisher and then it integrates into Blackboard accordingly. But that is just a best guess. So I would think that, I mean, thinking about that a little bit further, my assumption would be is if you had maybe a, like I said, now I don't know, I don't use, I haven't had a lot of experience using different publisher content, so I can't even give a good solid lead on that, other than just kind of double check with your rep if you can, and look to see what options you have available to you on the publisher content side, and then just sort of see how that reflects in the gradebook. Amy asked, can you only drop a low score if you are using weighted categories? I think that, well, let's just go ahead and test that. So we'll learn together, because I would imagine that there would be an option for how to do that, even if, let's go to Gradebook item weights, and then I know that we have this option here where you can exempt it from the lowest grade from the overall grade, but I don't know if that's necessarily, like, if that does that globally. Am I in the right tab? No. I'm so sorry. So what I did, I'm so sorry, I didn't switch my tab over into the view. So I went back to our gradebook here we're messing around in, and I changed it from the category weights, and I went back to the gradebook item weights. And I know there is this option here that gives you some control over whether or not you want to exempt that particular assignment from the overall grade, but I think that would exempt that assignment for everybody, if that makes sense. So it's as I kind of organize or try to make logic of the ability to drop the lowest score using the categories, is that it will look at that as a more student individual grade, because it's going by the lowest grade that the student got out of that category, if that makes sense. So it sort of narrows it down by student, rather than this, I think, is more of a, it would, eliminate this particular graded item from the entire overall grade.
Hey, Erica, I believe I've got the time right now. It's 1:21, so I think it's time to wrap up, I believe. Am I right this time?
You are, and I hope that this was everything you dreamed it would be. No, I know that this is, no, I know that there's a lot to go over in the grade book, and like I said, these kind of walkthroughs can be really a lot for you to try to take in and really relate to how it's going to work best in your course. So it's my suggestion that you try to look up and reference all of the resources, or if even that, there's a lot of resources and sometimes it can be overwhelming. Just double check with your online learning director, or reach out to one of us at online learning and say, where can I find this? Because we understand that, like I said, even trying to navigate through those resources can be stressful if you're just feeling overwhelmed. So I strongly suggest taking advantage of that great micro course that Lorraine put together, which I'm going to get a link for, and I'll put it in the chat. And that way you'll be able to do these things in your course. And I think a lot of it is really going to end up being a case of, trial and error, and you being able to have the opportunity to work in it and see what makes the most sense for you and your students in your course, because it's just such a, there's so many variables. Great effort on working through a convoluted software issue. There are some glitches, which I hope Blackboard will. Well, of course, I was glad to. I was very, very thankful for Lorraine and the course she put together, because it helped me understand it a lot more also. And one thing I'll say is that there is a consistent effort on Blackboard's part to upgrade and update things that they have on their roadmaps and things like that. And so you may get used to doing something a certain way, but like I said, this course was made pretty recently, and up until then, these weren't options. And as it was mentioned earlier, they're not as complicated as they were before, because before there was a lot of workaround that you had to try to, calculate on your own. So they are making every effort they can to keep the updates coming.
Erica,
so I do appreciate you all coming.
This is Leah. We're past time now, so I'm going to go ahead and stop. I do want to thank you for sharing this information today. It was very appreciated. And I want to thank all of the rest of you for coming to this session today, and for all of the sessions that you've attended thus far. Ultra Week has